Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely flip the way you look at the buildings around you. Most of us just walk into an office, a hospital, or an apartment block and see, a finished product, a static object of brick, glass, and steel. But today, we're diving into the dynamic, completely invisible timeline of the built environment. We're going to explore the theory of the facility life cycle and exactly why understanding it is absolutely critical to global sustainability.
Here is what we're covering today. First, the hidden life of buildings. Second, the sustainability imperative. Third, the cost of short-term thinking. And finally, tools for a greener future. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The hidden life of buildings. Looking beneath the surface. Okay, let's challenge that assumption I just mentioned. The idea that a building is a static, done deal the second the ribbon is cut and the doors open.
To really get a grip on a facility, you've got to look at its whole timeline. And believe it or not, the framework we use today actually started out in 19th century biology. Think about it. A biological organism goes from birth to growth to maturity to death. Fast forward to the 1950s, and economists borrowed this concept for products. Then, in the 70s and 80s, the built environment folks picked it up to calculate whole life costing. And today, it's evolved into strict international standards like ISO 15686 and massive net zero carbon goals. We basically look at a facility's life as a sequence of 6 stages, from the initial strategic decision to build, through design, construction, operation, renovation, and finally its end-of-life or adaptive reuse.
Actually, take a second and look around the room you're in right now. Your building is not just one static object. It's a complex, living organism made up of nested subsystems. And here's the kicker. They all die and need replacing at totally different times. The structural frame, the concrete and steel, might last over a century, but the building envelope, like the roof and cladding, might only last 20 to 40 years. Your heating and cooling systems, give it 15 to 25 years. Interior aesthetics, 10 to 15. And the IT infrastructure could literally be obsolete in just 5 to 10 years. A facility is constantly shedding and regrowing its parts over its lifespan. And this brings us to a massive iceberg paradigm shift that facility managers have to grapple with. When we think about what a building costs, we instantly think about construction, right? But get this, only about 1 to 5% of the money is spent during design and planning. Construction is roughly another 20%. So where's the rest? A staggering 60 to 80% of a building's total life cycle cost actually happens in the operational stage. It's totally out of sight over decades of paying for energy, maintenance, and all those replacements we just talked about. And the crazy part? Up to 80% of those long-term costs get permanently locked in by decisions made during that tiny 5% design phase.
Moving on to Section 2, the sustainability imperative, the massive global footprint. Let's connect this operational iceberg to the massive global stakes of facility management. Because when we talk about buildings lasting 60 or 100 years, we aren't just talking about money, we're talking about a massive environmental footprint.
Check this out. Globally, the built environment is responsible for a massive 40% of all energy consumption. Let that sink in. Almost half of the energy we produce as an entire species goes straight into heating, cooling, lighting, and just running the spaces we live and work in. And because it draws so much power, the built environment also generates a full 33%, literally 1/3, of all global greenhouse gas emissions. But it doesn't stop with just energy and emissions. Our facilities consume exactly half, 50%, of all extracted raw materials on the planet. Think about the concrete, the steel, glass, water. The sheer volume of stuff required to build and maintain our environment is mind-blowing. These numbers aren't just an accident. They are the direct consequence of how we've historically designed, run, and eventually demolished our buildings.
So how do we actually tackle this? Well, historically, over a typical 60-year lifespan, the energy a building uses day to day, its operational energy, has way outpaced the energy it took to build it. But today, we're seeing this fascinating seesaw effect. As modern buildings get super energy efficient operationally, their daily carbon footprint drops. Awesome, right? But because of that drop, the embodied carbon, which is the carbon emitted manufacturing and shipping the building materials themselves, suddenly becomes a much bigger slice of the pie. The takeaway here? A real whole-life sustainability strategy can't just fixate on energy bills anymore. It absolutely has to focus on the materials we choose on day one.
Section 3. The cost of short-term thinking. Why cheap is expensive. With the environmental stakes so incredibly high, you might be wondering, why isn't every new building perfectly sustainable?
Well, we have to look at the financial misalignments that make sustainable buildings so difficult in the real world. Let's see why cheap upfront is often very expensive in the long run.
Let's look at the straightforward math of life cycle costing. Imagine you're picking between two building designs. Option A is cheaper to build. It costs £500,000 up front, but it's an energy hog, costing £30,000 a year to run. Option B is way more sustainable, but it costs £650,000 to build, so an extra $150,000 up front. However, its energy bill is only £12,000 a year. Over a 25-year period, front-loading that extra $150,000 for the sustainable option B actually saves you a whopping £300,000 total. This completely proves that going green is a rational economic reality, for sure, not just a luxury.
Yet, despite that crystal clear math, we hit major roadblocks. First up, short-termism. You see, procurement and funding cycles almost never match a building's 60 to 100-year life. An investor or public budget might literally only care about the next 3 to 5 years, and that heavily incentivizes making the cheap upfront choice, option A from our last example, completely sacrificing the optimal long-term value.
Then we've got this structural headache called split incentives. Think about it. A commercial developer pays the capital costs to construct the building, but they usually aren't the ones paying the utility bills 10 years down the line. The tenant pays the bills, but the tenant had no control over the building's original design. Since the costs and the benefits are split between two totally different parties, nobody is fully motivated to internalize the whole life value of a sustainable design. It's literally a case of, well, not my bill, not my problem.
And finally, data gaps. This one's wild. Even when a building is designed to be ultra-sustainable, reliable real-world data is super scarce once the doors actually open. In fact, there is a recognized performance gap where a building's actual, everyday energy use regularly blows past its pristine design models by more than 50%. Naturally, when buildings don't perform as promised, it totally undermines the trust required to make those big, long-term investments.
Section 4. Tools for a greener future. Measuring and managing. Okay, let's dive into the practical tools industry pros use to smash through these exact barriers, close those data gaps, and navigate strict new regulatory pressures. The absolute gold standard for making that invisible environmental footprint visible is the Life Cycle Assessment, or LCA. This is an ISO standardized process that quantifies every single environmental impact, from mining the raw materials through construction and operation all the way to eventual demolition. It literally measures the impact from cradle to grave. By rigorously tracking everything, it allows architects and managers to make scientifically sound choices about materials and energy use before a single shovel hits the dirt.
But hey, how do we fix that 50% data gap we just talked about? That's where post-occupancy evaluations, or POEs, come in. A POE is a structured, rigorous assessment of how a facility actually performs after people have moved in. It checks the energy meters, surveys the folks working there about comfort and air quality, and basically closes the crucial feedback loop between what the architects intended on their blueprints and how the building functions in reality.
Armed with these tools, we're seeing massive industry shifts. Net zero carbon, that's quickly becoming the baseline. We're leaning into a circular economy, using material passports, so buildings act like raw material banks for the future, instead of just giant landfills. Toss in digital twins for predictive maintenance and biophilic design for human well-being, and sustainability isn't just a fringe perk anymore. Driven by tough ESG reporting, it's a hardcore financial requirement.
And that brings us to the end of this explainer. But before we wrap, I want to leave you with a provocative question from our sources to chew on the next time you walk into a hospital, a school, or an office building. Does the push for sustainability always align with long-term financial value? As we've seen, the math often works out brilliantly. But balancing short-term budgets, split incentives, and embodied carbon, it's a massive tightrope walk. It's a fascinating challenge, and understanding the facility life cycle is absolutely the key to solving it. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and keep your eyes open because the built environment is a whole lot more alive than it seems.